The Fed announcement comes in and everyone temporarily loses their minds. Let's talk about the news and break down the charts. Here we go. What is up, gang? It is I, Carlton Flowers, your crypto pro.
Yay!
And today, boy, we've got some news to talk about. I'm wearing my post-Halloween outfit here. You can see my bones there going on. Shout out to Bones in the Crypto Pro group, by the way.
Yay!
Hope you're doing well up there in the icy cold state of Canada. Not the state of Canada, but the state of being freezing in Canada. Well, the Fed rate comes out and everybody goes bananas. So in the news, let me just read a little bit of this. We had an update that came out just 10 minutes after the release that said stocks rose after the release of the Federal Reserve's decision to raise interest rates by 0.75 percentage points, as widely expected, and hinted, that is Mr. Jerome, at the possibility of smaller hikes ahead. Now, everybody heard that smaller hikes ahead, and they lost their ever-loving minds. In major stock indexes, the S&P 500, which was down 0.3% in the minutes just before 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, or was that Eastern Time, rather, it was up 0.5% right afterwards. The Dow Industrials, earlier up 0.2%, were up 0.9%, or about 290 points. The NASDAQ Composite, earlier was down 0.8% and was up 0.5% right after the news. Now, of course, we all know that everything went back down once everyone was finished with their little feeding frenzy after seeing what they wanted to see and hearing what they wanted to hear. In yields, the 2-year Treasury yield was 4.454% from 4.37%, 537% just before the announcement. And the 10-year yield was 3.99%, down from 4.038%. So right after the big bounce, we had the S&P up 0.65%, the NASDAQ was up 0.39%, and the Dow Jones was up 0.92%. Now let me just look real quick and see where the Dow is sitting right now, because I'm pretty sure it's taking a dump, and yes, it is. We'll look at that when we get to the chart section. But back to the news. This was just really silly for me, because when the announcement was made, Bitcoin grew this great big fat green candle. And I'm sitting there thinking, wait a minute. Jerome Powell tells us that we're getting the full 75 points, right? And then the price spikes. And I thought, oh, well, I give up. I'm not trying to make sense of this anymore because everybody has lost their minds. But after all the dust settled, down comes the crypto market along with everything else. Now, let's see, what else did I have here that I wanted to share? Okay, I've got a little chart here that shows how the Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ just went vertical. But then by the time they printed this graph, which was, I think, around 20 minutes after the opening, you could see where each one was hooking over and about to take a dump. So what do we learn from this? We learn that we have a bunch of degenerates in the market. Because I guarantee you it was not the BlackRocks and the big institutional investors that caused that big spike. It was probably us, the idiot retail investors, who wanted to make this into something that was positive. And then after their little feeding frenzy was done, there was nothing to hold it. And the rug got pulled. yanked right from underneath their feet. And then down come the prices. So we definitely will have an interesting month coming up ahead of us, and we will probably expect a 50 basis point rate hike in December. And so the only difference is, instead of doing a 75 and then a 75 and then a 75 in January, Jerome Powell says we're going to do a 75, then we'll go slower, but it'll be a 50, a 50, a 50, and continuing on until that interest rate goes above the inflation rate. When you sit and think about that just for a couple of minutes, let that kind of sink into your brain. That's not good news, because what it's saying is that instead of getting it over with and knocking down inflation, we're just going to continue raising rates for an extended period of time while inflation could possibly get out of control. And then Jerome Powell also said something that made no sense to me, that if the tightening ends up being too fast, well, they can always print money. And what do you think the effect that will have on the economy? You guessed it, inflation's going to go even higher. So shocking it down and tightening too quickly and then turning around and printing money to ease the over tightening is only going to extend the time period that we're going to have this painful bear market. So that is just wild to me, how it took so long, nearly an hour, before people realized that this was not good news. So let's jump on over to the charts. We'll check out Bitcoin, we'll check out the DXY and the DJI and see what they look like and try to get a good idea of where we're headed for the immediate time period. And then we'll have to continue on with the same strategy. Mine is dollar cost averaging. And by the way, that's not financial advice. You make your own decisions and you do your own thing. This is just for entertainment purposes. With that being said, I hate that phrase. Let's jump over and check out the charts. Okay, guys and girls, let's jump into this chart and dig in and see what we can see. So here we are on the Bitcoin chart with the 4 hour. So the first thing that we can talk about is what happened when the announcement hit. And when it happened, we started out where this candle here, you see that big, long, ridiculous red wick. And if you don't know, a wick is what happens when you rise up in price and you come back down inside of the time period between the opening price of that time period and the closing price of that time period. Anything out of that range makes a wick. So we at first had a solid green candle going straight up. And that's when I was like, what in God's name is happening here? Have people lost their minds? We get this negative news, and all of a sudden, the chart just goes straight vertical. People have absolutely lost their minds. But then I guess the dust settled and the shock of the announcement wore off. And like I said, I think it was retail investors that made the dumb decision to float this thing all the way up to the moon. And after that point, we dropped below the opening candle price, which is here. That's where the candle opened. And then we started to sail down. This is the closing price. We did wick all the way down here. I think, is that below? Let's see what the bottom of that wick is. It was right at 20,000. That's amazing. And so then we closed up here at 20,250. And then it started to make a little bit more sense, because this is what I expected. Now, the next candle, of course, started out at that 20,000 point, and it wicked all the way down to possibly just below. Let's see if that was below 20,000. Nope, 20,054. And then it closed out just above the current price of where we sit right now at 20,164. All right. We are currently forming a green candle, and I don't expect that to hold because the stochastic is wide open bearish. The fast line, which is this little blue one, is diverging away from the slow line, which is this little orange one, and they're both headed downstairs into the oversold zone. We also have the same situation on the MACD. where not only do we have a divergent fast line and slow line, we're also printing dark green, solid red candles on the histogram below the zero line, bars rather. So when it's light red bars, you're creeping up to the zero line. When it's the solid red bars, you're falling away from the zero line. That, my friends, is bearish. So right now we've got momentum moving downward towards the 200 EMA. I'm waiting to see what happens here, and I don't think that we're going to get much of a bounce because, as you can see, the 200 EMA comes into a slip zone over here near the VPVR, volume profile visible range, that tells us what kind of volume is happening at a particular price instead of the volume that happens in a particular time period. For instance, in the hour or the 4-hour slot after the announcement, this is how much buying and selling went on. And the selling outdid the buying. That's why this bar is red, okay? So the VPVR tells us how much was bought and which prices stick out as very popular price points. Whenever you have a little area here where there's not much, I call that the slip zone. And we tend to get gravitated towards the peak nodes of the VPVR. Here's a peak node at 20,180. Here's a peak node that is right at the red dashed line. Okay, so we're probably gonna violate this 200 EMA because we don't have, much more positive news now that really the announcement is done. And as they say, the price was already baked in, which never makes sense because if the price was baked in, why are we dropping? I think people just say that in denial. The price is baked in and it won't do anything extraordinary because we're already expecting the 75 basis point rate hike as we watch these candles go downward. Okay, so I'm fully expecting a continuance of this bearish action, and it could spell an end for this trading channel that was trending upwards. If we make a line, we draw it from these points here where we were making higher lows, and we come on up, we notice that we're at a decision point, because if we break this line right here, then this current upward trending trading channel is done. Okay, let me make the upper line here. So I look at trading channels. I call them swing channels. And what happens in these channels is price will go up and down and it'll bounce around up and down within the channel. Okay, and then once you violate the upper or lower boundary, you start a new one. And then at that point, we'll probably have established a downward trending trading channel. So let's say if we wick or candlestick all the way down to the 200 EMA, and then we start to do this kind of action, like this, okay, something like this, I don't know. What you're going to do, you're going to connect the lower low that is made, and you're going to connect the highs. And now this will establish your new trading channel, where we're going to bounce around within this trading channel. And if we fall out of that, we could have a new steeper channel. Okay, so let's clear this out, look at the 1 day and just see how it looks, scrunching this down. And we have this side banding is all that you could call this here, because it was not nearly like this steeper upward trending trading channel that we fell out of in order to do this little side banding action. Stochastic is very bearish. We have done a double hump camel at the top, peaking twice, only to fall out. And now the fast line and the slow line are divergent and both headed down. What do we have downstairs on the MACD? But an ugly looking impending crossover of the oscillators. There it is right there. Okay. So if the fast line, which is quickly taking a little dip, comes down and crosses the slow line right there, as would be expected, because look at the bars on the histogram. They are light green instead of solid green. Then this is going to start to move down here below the zero line. And then here, all we can say is that we hope we would get stuck at the 50 EMA right there that coincides with this peak volume node that is somewhere around 20,000. That's the line of demarcation. If we don't hold that, we're coming back down here to test the red dash line and the point of control price of 19,000 and change. Okay, let's clear that out. And then we'll just kind of look at the 1 week and just jump to the DJI and the DXY. So on the 1 week chart, we're in a solid red candle here. The stochastic is pointing up, but I don't think that it's going to hold because the last time we had a fake out and a reversal, followed by a fake out and a reversal. And I'm thinking this will be a fake out and a reversal where we jump back down here into the sorry oversold territory. MACD is still making an overall downtrend with peak, lower high, and now it looks like this is not going to work out. It might be a lower high because notice that the bars on the histogram are not making too much of a peak right now compared to that last peak. So that, my friends, is the Bitcoin action and what we could possibly expect. Let's jump to the DXY. And of course, you guessed it, we bounced off of the black ascending dashed line that I talked about in a previous video. And when I did this video, I told you people that you better watch what happens right there, okay? And what happened? The DXY broke the 50 EMA, but it bounced off of this black dash line. It didn't even get a chance to make it down here to the 200 EMA. Now, I made this black dash line because it consists of all of the lows after this bullish trend started. So when you look at all of these higher lows right here, this established this ascending black dash line. So this tells me that there's a good chance that the DXY is going to continue to break records as everybody around the world is pouring into the dollar, which is the safe haven. And we all know that as the DXY goes up, it's not good for Bitcoin. All right, that's enough of the DXY. We don't need to look at the 1 week. Let's go to the DJI, the Dow Jones on the 1 day. We can see what happened right after the announcement dropped, which was this crazy green candle. Or I think it was this smaller red one that's in between because it probably shot up just a fraction and then boom, boom, it came back down. In fact, this is the 1 day chart, so it was this one right here. There's the wick right there. And we're still in that current candle. So we had a double hump top here that faked out, got rejected, and now the stochastic, it's looking like it's ready to take a trip downstairs. Let's make that red, as a matter of fact. It's going to bleed on down. And what do you see here? The fast line on the MACD oscillators is curling over, and we're printing light green bars on the histogram. What does that spell? It spells correction for DJI, and we're going to head towards this 50 EMA, and it's probably going to break through that and go even lower. Let's look at the 1 week. On the 1 week chart, it looks even uglier. We got a nice fat red candle. And look at this line that I established here before. Let's just extend it out now. We have how many rejections happening on that downward trending line? We have a rejection here once, twice, 3 times a lady, and 4 times. I just wanted to say that. It's actually 4 rejections. And so I'm expecting that this rise in the stochastic is going to unfurl and fail, and then we'll also peak here on this histogram and probably get another crossover right there on the MACD oscillators. So that's what it's looking like between all of these critical charts. We'll just end it back out here on the Bitcoin chart. And the one thing that I'll leave you with, I drew this up here, and this just happens to be a Fibonacci retracement, and something that I found very, very interesting is that we've got a possibility of touching down on the, let's see, it's the 786 line, okay, which is right here, that is below this peak volume node at the 19,000. And so if we don't make it, if we don't hold right here at the 1, which is a very important line, we're sitting at that right now, we could drop down to the 786. But the 786 will probably not hold, and the golden is probably going to kick in and be a possible target. That is the 618. So when you look at this chart, here's the 618 line right there, and it coincides with a very nasty price of 14,000. Am I saying that's going to happen? No. I'm just telling you it's possible because that is the golden retrace. So if we don't hold that and get some things going, expect the golden retrace to come into play. And after that, I don't know what'll happen. We'll just have to wait and see what it is. So that is it with the charts. Let's wrap up. All right, my friends, that is all we have. Crazy, crazy day. And now, like I said, we can sit and twiddle our thumbs until December with the next rate hike that we pretty much already know it's going to be a 50-point rate hike. We've got our 75. Let's wait and see what the charts will tell us. And maybe we get good news. Maybe we get some black swans flying in to knock this sucker down. Whatever the case, the caution flag is up. I'm being very careful, and I would recommend to everyone, don't get crazy, don't get silly, be careful, don't invest money that you cannot afford to lose, and we need to really watch this world economy and use common sense. Okay, well, I would love it if you would like, comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Pro channel. And if you would like to help defray the expensive costs of me producing these videos, you can with a super thanks. And I thank you in advance if you would like to help me out and put some change in the kitty. Thank you very much. Okay, so until next time, I hope you enjoyed this news report. Post your thoughts in the comments and let me know what you think is up next for the Bitcoin chart and if you think the bottom is in. That's all I've got. We'll see you next time. This is Carlton and I am completely out.